From MinTech, the Micro Nano Technology Education Center, this is Talking Technicians, the podcast about technicians, who they are, what they do, and where they come from. I'm your host, Peter Kazarnoff. I teach technicians and engineers at Portland Community College. In each episode, you'll meet a working technician and hear their story. That means real interviews with real technicians about real jobs. At the end of each episode, you'll hear actions you can take if you want to be a technician too. In this episode, you'll meet Mario. Mario is an intern at Intel in Hillsboro, Oregon, outside Portland. Mario, welcome to Talking Technicians.
Thanks, Peter. I've been looking forward to this meeting.
Mario, you work as an intern at Intel in Hillsboro, Oregon. Do you live close by to there?
I do. I live in the Tannisbourne area, so about a 12-minute drive.
And how long have you been in the greater Portland area?
I moved here in September 26th. September 20th in order to start last semester, which started on the 26th.
So you've kind of a recent Portland convert. Where were you before that?
Before that, I was in Miami, Florida. I was there for about 8 months. And prior to that, I was in the military in Hawaii.
And Mario, what brought you to the Portland area? Why did you move up from Miami?
So I was planning, because of my job in the military, I was a nuclear technologist. I was planning on pursuing nuclear engineering. And one of the better programs I found was at OSU, to which I got accepted. And then I realized I was going to need money while going to school. Like I have my wife. I couldn't just rely on my military benefits. So I started to apply to pretty much anything I could find in the general vicinity of Corvallis. And I saw that Intel had some technician jobs. I applied to one of them and I didn't even think I was going to get it, but surely enough, next day they called me and they were like, hey, you don't qualify for this because you don't have your degree, but we may have an intern position. Within 3 days, I had an interview and
then you got started working in the semiconductor industry. So Mario, how would you describe your title and what kind of things do you do at work?
So my official title is Product Design Engineering Intern. However, most of what I do is work as an engineering technician. So because of the COVID pandemic, most of the product design engineers at the lab, they had to go from setting up their own, because we have these trays. I don't know how to, I'm going to try to describe this. So there are these trays. Those trays hold a certain amount of microprocessors on them. You get those trays and you put them onto these machines, and the machines put them through certain tests. And before, the engineers were the ones that would do this. They would set all of that stuff for themselves. When COVID happened, they realized they had to have a more seamless operation because there's a lot of stuff going on at the research lab. And so they created this position, which is the position that I currently occupy, for us to do that for them while they do their jobs remotely. While we do that, though, we are also tasked with doing some of the jobs that the product design engineers do in order to make their job more efficient. So we're like the guinea pigs, I guess, to like the different kinds of testing processes. Like we do it, if it works with us, it'll definitely work with the guys who really know how to do this.
And Mario, do you work in shifts or do you have a 9-to-5 schedule?
So the way that it currently works for me is I work either the first 3 days of the week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Every week it shifts. So 3 days one week, 4 days the other week, and each shift is 12 hours. However, they are very, because we're interns and we're going to school, they're really flexible when it comes to that. Like I go to class Monday through Wednesday. So I come in I'm supposed to come in at 7 in the morning and leave at 7 at night. But because of my school schedule, I come in around 1 p.m. and leave pretty much whenever I want, as long as I don't exceed 12 hours per day.
So, Mario, you're working as an intern in the semiconductor industry, and at the same time, you're going to school and being a community college student. That's pretty amazing and a huge amount of work. I'm really impressed by that. So, tell me a little bit more about work. Do you work in a team or do you work alone?
It's a team. It's a team. We're all under this program, I guess. It's called the Opportunity Program, which they have at Intel, which they are looking for more people if anybody listening to this is interested. And the way that it works is they get people that have had life experience already, either in a different field, military or whatnot. And if they're interested in getting an electrical engineering degree, they'll give you an interview. The interview is basically just a big IQ test. And based on how you do an interview, they'll give you the job. Once you're there as a team, the job can realistically be done by 3 people, but we have 6 at every shift because we are expected to be on top of our schoolwork, and we can do that schoolwork at work. So because it's 6 of us, we have a fair amount of time in between actual work to actually study and get our homework done and everything like that.
Mario, you mentioned that there are 6 of you working together. Do you also work with a bunch of different types of folks at Intel, like engineers, PhD researchers, and others, or is it mostly with other interns like you?
So the interns that I currently work in, because there are only so I work with 6. In the entire program, there are 12 people. Out of those 12 people, 5 of us are trying to become electrical engineers. The others, one is well, 2 are CSs. One is currently doing his PhD in data sciences. Another one is getting his master's in finance. It's pretty mixed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mario, do you remember what it felt like your first day at Intel? What did it feel like walking into Intel on your first day of work?
I felt like I was completely out of place. Yeah, because I had just came from being in the military, like kind of like being a low level petty officer, what they call you. And all of a sudden, like, cause I applied on the 20th for this job, interviewed on the 23rd, and it was like, hey, can you start in 3 weeks kind of thing, and like uproot my whole life over here. And then the 26th came around, and I was like, what am I doing here right now? Because you're surrounded. When I went to the orientation, like I was talking to some of the people around me, very just chatting and stuff. And all of these people had their masters and PhDs from like Berkeley. I met a guy from MIT, and I'm like, I am not supposed to be here right now. Yeah, but it's interesting because I kind of think like finding yourself in a position like that, it's really motivating. Like I can do this kind of thing, if that makes any sense.
Mario, now how does it feel at work? Does it feel different when you go in, even though you are surrounded by people who originally thought were working at such a high level?
Oh, it's such a casual work environment. There's no like, of course, there's a hierarchy like in every other job, but you don't really feel it. It feels more like we're all working together to accomplish something. And as long as you're like working hard and getting everything you need to do to get done, everybody's going to treat you well, everybody's going to respect you, everybody's going to talk to you as an equal. This whole thing like, oh, I'm bigger than you because I make more money because I have this big degree. I have never felt that there.
And for you, Mario, do you feel like there are opportunities for professional growth? You mentioned that you're moving on to hopefully get a degree in electrical engineering. Could then you use those skills at Intel too?
Oh, that's the whole that's the point. The point of what I'm currently doing there is to hopefully finish my degree. And once I do that, I will have had 3 years, 2 to 3 years of intern experience working with them, knowing pretty much everything that happens below the product design engineering level. So that once I'm a product development engineer, it's a more seamless transition. So that is the goal.
Mario, can you provide a ballpark salary for the engineering interns in the semiconductor industry? What might somebody expect to make if they're doing a similar role to yours?
Well, so there are two different paths to doing work like what I'm doing. Mine as an Intel employee, I'm making with mine as an Intel employee, I'm making about $27 an hour, and you're allowed to do up to 60 hours a week, which ends up being a pretty handsome amount of money while going to school. The other route is to be a contract worker via recruiting agencies. That's also like a very real option. They make about $21 an hour, but they're capped at 40 hours per week. If we decide to just, because we're also allowed, if we don't want to continue our education, we are allowed to just stay there as technicians. And full-time employee technicians start off at about $70,000 and cap off currently at around 180 a year for a technician. Yeah. So it's pretty good.
And Mario, are there benefits, things like retirement, healthcare, dental insurance that come along with this type of compensation?
Yes. For a very minimal amount, like for visual, dental, and health insurance, for both my wife and I pay about $12 per paycheck, and I get paid every 2 weeks. So $24 a month for my wife and I for visual, dental, health insurance. That's nuts. Yeah, so it's pretty good benefits. You get an FSA, oh no, an HSA, a health savings uh, account. Yeah, which is non-taxable. Uh, if you want to do the retirement plan with them, because you can opt not to, they match. You can contribute as up to like 15% of your salary, and they match up to 5%. And twice a year they do an employee stock purchase program. They offer it, as I said earlier, twice a year, and you can contribute up to 15% of your salary into the stock purchase program to acquire Intel stock at half price. So the benefits are very real.
So, Mario, we've talked a bunch about what you do in your work and what it felt like working. How about we kind of switch gears and talk about how you got to where you are now? What was your work experience before your current role, and what was your education experience before you started this internship?
When I first went to college, I graduated high school in 2011. I went to college to play baseball, so that was basically my whole life. I didn't really have any academic perspectives at that time. Like I always did okay in school, but my family, they were all academics slash professionals. So that was always kind of like a thing I knew was important. So when I went to school, I took their advice and I went into something that could possibly make me money in the future because baseball isn't a for sure thing. So I went for biochemistry. And through my sophomore year, well, through my freshman year, I got injured. By my sophomore year, I was taken off the baseball team, and I had to start really focusing on school now. And I realized I did not like biochemistry that much. I liked it, but not enough to put in the amount of work and like develop the work ethic to actually be successful at that. So I wasted a lot of time, and I after a couple of semesters I realized that I was probably better off leaving college and figuring something out. And what I figured out, like what I got myself into at that point, was the military, because I felt like I needed something like to get me in, like, okay, work mentality. I've never really had to work. I just did sports. And it's, you might think, oh, like you work hard in sports, work hard in this other thing. It's not the same. It really takes a change in perspective to really focus and do a job day after day, which was something I was not used to. And I was about 20 at this point. So I joined the military. I did really good on like the second entrance exam they gave you, and I became a nuclear technician. I went to school for about 2 years in that, and I liked it. It was really cool stuff. And also, I didn't really have an option to veer off and think about like, oh, but I don't like working. No, because it's the military, so you have to go, 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 go. And yeah, I made it through, and I worked as a nuclear technician on a submarine for about 4 years after that.
Mario, how did your work as a nuclear technician in the military on a submarine prepare you for your work now as an intern in the semiconductor industry? What kind of skills were you able to bring from your military experience that are really useful for you now?
They're not useful for me yet, but they will be. And I've noticed that in school, like in the class I took with you, and last semester we went over a lot of circuits, and that to me that was just like, oh, this is home for me, because in the submarine I did a lot of circuitry work. I learned a lot of schematics, and I had to memorize very large schematics very quickly and do maintenance on instrumentation, uh, fix electrical equipment that got messed up. I know, and I got pretty good at that technical aspect of having to deal with electrical equipment while doing my job in the military. Also, because my job was, because what I did for the most part was, have you ever seen The Simpsons? Do you remember? Have you ever seen like the picture of Homer Simpson sitting in front of like this giant panel of like buttons? That for the most part, that was what I would do. I would sit in front of this thing with a bunch of little things in front of me, reading gauges and buttons, and stare at it for about 8 hours every single day, with the with maintenance here and there and repairs mixed in between. Having to do that, because you're put in a position where if you don't notice something, this billion-dollar government-owned machine could not blow up, but could kill everybody. So there's this constant pressure of, I have to be focused on this thing endlessly. And that kind of routine of like, as long as I keep paying attention and I don't veer off, I'm good, like everything's gonna be fine. When I got out of the military and I became an intern here, that's kind of the same mentality I have going into it, where it's like, as long as I don't stop, I'll be good. So it's like, when I go to, I work, even though I only have to work 3 or 4 days out of the week, I go there about like 6 days a week. Today's my day off, but I go there about 6 days a week, and they don't mind. They like it when we come in, even on our days off, and just kind of sit there and study. And it's just that like kind of mentality, like this doesn't stop. Do you know what I mean?
So, Mario, you made a pretty big transition working in the military, moving all the way across the country, and now working as an intern and also as a student at the same time. What advice would you give to other folks that you've learned who might be making big career transitions like that?
The biggest thing I could think of is don't let like don't let the inconveniences of life stop you from doing something that can pay off greatly for you. Because, for example, it's like a lot of people, I feel like they let themselves be hindered by the fact that something is either far away or I'm going to have to like move or it's going to be new people or something's going to be difficult or I might fail. Fail. Go do the thing. Fail. If you do fail, move on to the next thing. Like things are never going to be clean cut like, oh, either you're going to always succeed or you're always going to fail. Keep pushing.
So, Mario, what advice would you give current students, like maybe your current classmates or people who want to transition their careers and work in the semiconductor industry as a technician? What would you say to those folks?
So your question is people who are thinking about going from school to transitioning to a tech field job or who want to do both things simultaneously?
Well, it could be potentially both, or people who are working outside of a tech field job. Maybe they're waiting tables or they're doing some other type of work, but they want to transition into advanced technology industry and work as a technician. What would you say to them?
To make the leap, I would say make the leap. It's very rewarding in more ways than one. You're going to be surrounded by some of the smartest people that this country has to offer. You're going to be paid well. You're going to be part of something that will eventually make a difference. Because, for example, right now, as like, I guess, trivial as what I do might seem to a lot of people, it's like, man, I'm working on the 14th generation of Intel processors. Only the 12th generation just came out. So it's like this thing that I'm helping build is going to be used by millions of people eventually. And sure, I'm not the one designing this whole thing, or I'm not the one who created it. But if it wasn't for the work that we put in, it would have never happened. Like, and that it's something that it's very fulfilling to think about that you were part of something greater than yourself, even as a technician, while also having all the benefits in the world, getting paid real good money, having a bunch of opportunities. If you start as a technician and you're good, like the sky's the limit. They'll send you to school, they'll pay for it. You have all the support in the world. The environment, I would have never thought before working in a place like this that the environment would be like it is, like as supportive and as employee driven. Yeah, I always thought it would be like, I don't know, I guess like how the movies and like television makes it seem where it's like you show up to this place and there's all this like pressure trying to bring you down and people kicking you around. That is not what it's like at all.
So, Mario, do you have a final call to action for students or people who want to transition their careers so that you can bring in the next generation of interns in the semiconductor industry?
The final thing I would have to say, my final call to action would be this is the it used to be the just the future, but now technology is the present and will continue to be our future. This is the biggest industry in the world beyond anything because we need technology. We make technology to develop new technologies. That's that's how crazy it is. Before it used to just be like, oh, you have a bunch of people in an office trying to figure out stuff. Now we have computers to figure out this stuff for us, and we make them. Like if if that's something that motivates you, being part of the growth of us as a society from a technology perspective, that is the place you should go. That's the place you have to go, because where else could you make an impact like that? And don't think about it as just like, oh, if I'm working in technology, I'm just gonna be working on computers. There's millions of different kinds of technology out there. There are so, even if you're into the environment, there's a tech job out there for you. Like it, I feel like a lot of people have this idea of what tech is, when tech it's like saying science. Science is just this really vague general term to describe a bunch of different things. And so is tech. Technology. Technology is just anything that advances what we currently have.
Well, Mario, thank you so much for sharing your story with me about both your work in the military, your transition into work now in the semiconductor industry, and what engineering interns do at Intel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I was shocked when I saw the message from you inviting me to do this with you.
Well, it's a wonderful conversation, and I'm really excited to share it with everyone. So please keep in touch.
Definitely. You as well.
Talking Technicians is produced by MNT-EC, the Micro Nano Technology Education Center, through financial support from the National Science Foundation's Advanced Technological Education Grant Program. Opinions expressed on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the National Science Foundation. Join the conversation. If you are a working technician or know someone who is, reach out to us at info@talkingtechnicians.org. We're always looking out for great guests to share more stories with you.